Um, it's just time, man. You know, I just start to feel it. You start to miss it. I'm home.
If we were to ask a bunch of people who the greatest rapper of all time is, we're willing to bet that several of them would say Nas. This is a rap legend that got millions of people falling in love with his lyrics, and that's why he is the most feared in the rap industry. Really, who wouldn't respect someone who rented a completely unfurnished, smoke-filled apartment just to write rhymes on the wall like some obsessed detective? It's one of the many things that got Nas both fear and respect from other artists. But before we get into the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the new videos we post. And now, let's get right into the video on why he is the most feared in the rap world. Turned down a movie role. One fact that most people don't know about Nas involves his name. His full name is actually Nasir bin Alu Dara Jones, named after his father. His jazz musician father is of Yoruba descent, and a Yoruba priest gave him the name Oludara, which means God is good. The name stuck, of course, and he decided to pass the name down to his son. The bin in the name means son, so Nas's name translates to son of Oludara Jones. But away from this is that he could have played the lead role in the movie Save the Last Dance. At the time, anyone would have jumped up at the opportunity to play the lead in a movie, and the extra bucks didn't hurt. But Nas declined the offer for an audition, and a lot of people would agree with that decision today, while giving him a lot of respect for it. Well, you could form your opinion about his decision to reject the role as the lead black guy in the movie by checking out the trailer. Just check it out and let us know what you think about that. And yes, he did get to be on a movie alongside Method Man and DMX, and that was called Belly. Hype Williams would get the stars amped up for their roles by making them run around the building while filming was going on. This movie had other artists, but these three really stood out, and we're sure they were more than amped up after a few laps. Up next is, he's a talented artist. How many musicians can say that they did a painting in front of millions of fans and then sold it at a record high price? Apparently, Nas is one of the few that can say this. This rapper is respected for his tenacity, and a good example of that was when he performed the song Major Look in Miami. During that performance, he created a painting on stage, and by the time he was done, many people in the audience were desperate to take that picture home, and so the bidding started at $6,000 to $10,000 until no one could go beyond the bid at $14,000. That was the lucky person that went home with Nas's one and only painting ever. Now, when it comes to paintings, even Nas admitted himself that he's not that great with a paintbrush. But when you put a pen in his hands, you know the magic lyrics will definitely come out, and one of the few people he has to thank for this is Large Professor. This rapper played a huge role in Nas's first album. Before he became famous, Nas would attend studio sessions to watch the making of Eric B. and rock hymns. Large Professor knew that Nas had the talents, and during one of those sessions he encouraged the young man to drop some rhymes. This led to the creation of Nas's first debut album, Illmatic, which even Russell Simmons thought would be a major commercial flop. Knowing how classic that album later turned out to be, we can all see how wrong he was. Up next is, he has beef with a lot of artists. When rappers have beef with each other, it could reflect on how their career goes. But Nas is so badass that he has beef with several rappers and still is one of the greatest rappers of all time. He's had beefs with Tupac, Jay-Z, and 50 Cent, and still had a legendary career. He came into the rap game with targets on his back. How many people can do that? Although Nas idolized Tupac and saw him as an inspiration, he was hurt when Tupac misinterpreted a line from one of his songs as a diss to him and then made a diss track directed at Nas. This was eventually settled, but 3 days before he could correct the mistake he had made on the track with a remix, Tupac was killed. Nas was at a concert when he got the news and immediately stopped it to pay respects to the rap legend. Now, let's talk about the diss track that Tupac thought was directed at him. The real person that Nas was talking about was actually Biggie. Once again, his opponent died before they could really cement the beef or settle it. With Jay-Z, the battle was for King of New York after Biggie's death, but they became friends and even performed at a concert together. It was an event that gave rap fans a collective heart attack, but the good kind, if there is any like that. The beef with 50 Cent is quite interesting because they couldn't get along enough to work together in the same crew. Knowing 50 Cent, Is anyone really surprised that he couldn't be friends with Nas? Nas has also had beefs with Young Yeezy, Bill O'Reilly, and Jesse Jackson. That's quite the list. Up next, childhood best friend was killed. Nas is no stranger to blood and murder, and that is possibly one of the reasons why he is the most feared in the rap industry. In many of his albums, he refers to someone called Ill Will. Ill Will William was one of his childhood best friends. Unfortunately, he was murdered when they were teenagers, but he was as badass as Nas, especially with how he introduced the rap legend to Chinese food. At the time, he would tell Nas to stick his plate out the window, and Ill Will would drop the food from the top of an apartment. It's a strange story by all standards, but not as strange as how heavily bootlegged Illmatic was. In fact, there are claims that a garage had up to 60,000 copies of this bootlegged version. Up next, told Kallus straight up that they would get married. He takes a huge level of confidence to be able to walk up to anyone and say what's on your mind. And Nas had that confidence in large supply. Everyone knows that he got married to Kallus, who produced the hit song Milkshake. Although they're not together anymore, the story of how they met is quite interesting. Kallus and Nas met at an after party organized by Diddy. It's quite funny that both Nas's father and Kallus's father worked together, as they were both jazz musicians. So you could say that it had always been meant to be. Kallus revealed that the rapper had initially acted like he was a bit shy when they met each other for the first time. According to her, he stood up while everyone moved out of his way as he walked towards her. She introduced herself as Kallus, and he goes, "Who?" She was about to die of embarrassment and then crawl back into her hole. But he asked what her name was again. When she replied, Nas said, "Oh, that's great, because I've been waiting to make you my wife all these years." Talk about turning on your charm. Of course, we all saw the results of that with their marriage not too long after that. Next up is, he's worth $70 million. 47-year-old rap legend Nas is worth a whopping $70 million. And he doesn't really look it. First, you would think he was in his 20s, but he's really not. Do you know what it means to be worth $70 million? You could earn $40,000 every day for the next 4 years and still won't earn up to $70 million. That's super impressive. Let's look at how he made enough money to be this wealthy. Many hip-hop fans know him as the greatest rapper of all time, but there's more to Nas than his lyrical ability. He's also a savvy businessman, with millions of records sold so far. Beyond that, Nas is a venture capitalist and founding member of Queensbridge Venture Partners. What that means is that his company is into smart home security, and Nas made a whopping $40 million when it was acquired in 2018 for $1 billion by Amazon. This rap legend has also invested in companies like Dropbox, Coinbase, Genius, Crunchbase, and Lyft. But that's not all. Several restaurants can be traced back to Nas, including a chicken and waffle restaurant known as Sweet Chick. You can find this restaurant in several spots around New York, bringing in millions every year. Finally, do you know about the media company Mass Appeal? Well, it's known to dabble in fashion, film, television, and music. They recently launched a record label that has signed dozens of artists so far. The media company also has partnerships with Universal Music Group, worth tens of millions of dollars. Feels good to be stinkin' rich. Up next is the DJ Envy story. DJ Envy had an epic encounter with Nas, which he can't forget in a hurry. At the time, the disc jockey wasn't as popular and accidentally bumped into Nas while trying to get his mixtape around. He was absolutely starstruck and quickly reached into his bag as he wanted Nas to listen to his mixtape. DJ Envy was excited and kept saying he wanted Nas to listen to his mixtape, but when he pulled the mixtape out of his bag, he didn't expect to see a gun pointed at him. Apparently, he had come across as a threat to Nas, and the rapper asked what he got for him. DJ Envy quickly dropped his bag and said it was just a mixtape. The good part of this is that Nas collected it and then started a good relationship. And there you have it. Here's why Nas is the most feared in the rap industry. Which Nas song is your absolute favorite? Let me know in the comments. And that's a wrap. Thanks for watching.